Chapter 8. By the time we leave the chalet, the sun has dropped behind the mountains, a pinkish sky now replaced by the turquoise hues of a night sky and a billion twinkling dots. There's quite a bite to the air without the light of the day, and my breath hovers around my mouth with every breath or uttered word. Carl's car engine comes to a stop, keys jangling against the cold plastic of the steering column as we brace ourselves for the world outside the car's relatively warm interior. "Let's do this," says Carl, his stomach gurgling as he speaks. I reach one foot out of the car, careful to step around a slab of snow-covered ice, as one foot slides precariously away from me. I keep 2 points of contact on the cold metal of the car at all times, until I'm more confident about my footing. "Need a hand?" asks Carl, laughing at me. "Nope," I say. "I totally got this." Which isn't exactly true, as I play a kind of game of Twister with the ground. "Stop laughing at me. I bet you did this on purpose, didn't you? To get your own back." Carl continues to grin, enjoying my moment of awkwardness a little too much, and I'm pleased to see him laughing, especially with all the stress in the chalet since Miriam turned up out of the blue and guilt-tripped the boys into allowing her to crash on the sofa. "Why would I get my own back?" says Carl. "What have you done that I don't know about, eh?" "Well, I'm hardly going to tell you now, am I, Carl? Not that I'd ever prank you, of course. I'm not like that. But now you've said it, maybe I should. Have to get my thinking cap on, see what I can come up with." Carl reaches out his arm to me, and deciding it's wiser to take it than to have my limbs slide in all directions, I do so gladly, which causes Carl to slide over, ending up in a heap at my feet as he looks up at me a bit dazed. He rolls himself onto all fours, hands on my boots, kind of pulling himself up my legs as I grab hold of his jacket and sort of cantilever him up. "That happen a lot, does it?" asks Carl. "Men falling at your feet?" "Oh, all the time," I say, though not quite as spectacularly. I dust off the snow from his back, glad to learn that he's unhurt and his pride remains intact. "Don't get used to it, Maddie. I can assure you that was a one-off event," he says, still grinning, as I offer him my elbow and we walk arm in arm towards the hospital entrance. The snow has been cleared here, the area gritted with salt, and the snow shovelled away to the sides. "That's him," I say, passing my phone to Carl so he can have a better look. We step into the sheltered nook of the porch, hospital doors opening automatically as they sense our presence. Carl taps his finger on the screen, and we stand in silence for a few minutes, watching an animated, more life-filled William present to camera. "Yeah," says Carl. "I recognise him. Had no idea he had a video channel though, but I can't say I'm surprised. He always seemed a bit full of himself, seemed to have a following when I've seen him at the club. Never the same people though, always a new group of tourists, hanging on his every word, always keeping him in drinks. A kind of lonely sort, preferred his own company, easily bored." "Huh," I say. "Now that really surprises me. Not the impression I got of him at all, but I suppose I've not really seen him under normal circumstances, and he had only just gained consciousness and been told he was going to die." Carl clicks play on another video, considering his interactions with William further, as I contemplate my own first impressions. "I'd say this is the guy I met at the club," says Carl. The kind of guy who will do anything for a laugh, not really considering the impacts on others. He was always pranking guys at the club, so I don't think it would take much for him to cross a line with one of his mates. Maybe that's why they shot him. Get their own back for a prank he played. Maybe he humiliated them somehow. Carl hands me my phone back, and I tuck it safely away in my pocket, mentally considering this new insight into William's character. Could he have pranked someone, and that's why they shot at him? It seems a bit extreme. That cheeky, chappy Londoner exterior, so very different to the quiet, lonely boy lying on the bed until death calls his name. A very different boy to the one I met earlier. I lead the way towards William's room, a maze of identical corridors branching off into newer twists and turns. We head up a couple of floors, finally turning into another, greener corridor. William's room at the end, door closed, a couple of empty chairs outside. We're about to enter, only there are voices sounding from within the room. The drier, grittier voice I know to be William's, and another, which confuses me greatly. Softer, Swedish. Cheerful, even. I grab Carl's arm by his sleeve. "Wait," I cry. "There's someone in there." I lean as close as I dare to the door, ear pressed against it, trying to decipher the frantic mumbles. Carl's hand, frozen in time, hovers, fingers about to fumble for the door handle. "No way," he says, head flinching as he recognises the woman's voice. "Miriam?" I shrug my shoulders. "What's she doing here? How does Miriam know William? She doesn't even ski." "But I didn't even know she knew him," says Carl. "I mean, how's that even possible? Like, she literally only just arrived in Val d'Isere." I clasp my hand around my phone, wondering the same thing. "Well," I say, "I suppose he does have a lot of followers on his channel, but I can't imagine Miriam watching his videos. Maybe she's one of his subscribers or something." "Well, I don't get it," says Carl. "Why him? If he was rich or had something to offer her, then I get it, but seriously, this is my cousin Miriam we're talking about. Miriam, the parasite, who only likes people for one reason. What could a lifty possibly have to offer her?" "Maybe she met him at the club," I say. "Has she even been to the club?" "Well, not to my knowledge," says Carl, "and it really does seem unlikely, given that she only arrived a couple of nights ago, and the club was closed the first night, since it's always closed on Sundays." "Well, there's only one way to find out," I say, nodding my head at the door. Carl wraps his fingers around the handle, more securely this time, as he takes in a deep breath and pushes it slowly open. And there, sat by William's bedside, is Miriam, her hand in his as he lies perfectly flat on the mattress, a thick bandage wrapped around the location of the bullet hole in his neck. I decide to play things casually, to keep myself upbeat, part of me wondering what Miriam's role is in this situation, half suspecting that maybe she's in on it, that maybe she's in fact the person who shot William. Only, William seems far too relaxed around her, something I doubt he would be, if she really was the one that shot him. Unless, of course, he never saw the shooter, in which case he would have no reason to doubt her. I push the cascade of unanswered questions to the back of my mind and decide instead to focus on gaining his trust, to see exactly what he does remember, keeping in mind that he might also not give a factual version because of Miriam's being present. "Hey," I say, "it's Maddie, from earlier. I thought you might like some company, but it looks like you've already got some. Sorry to intrude. How are you feeling?" I take a few steps inside, Carl closing the door behind us as we stand awkwardly with a victim we barely know, who doesn't exactly seem delighted by our presence. He's more alert than my earlier visit, and I see now that his personality is more like the boy from the video than the one I imagined to be lonely and scared. There's a slight gurgled rattle from him as he clears his throat. "Yeah," he says, "just peachy. Dumb cow. How do you think I feel?" My whole body behaves as if I've just been punched hard in the stomach, confidence collapsing in on itself, knuckles curling into fists, winded with the hatred in his voice. But I'm not going to be put off that easily, and I can't say that I wouldn't be just as resentful as him were I in his situation, with not long left to live, knowing that everything that was ahead of you, your plans, your dreams, had been cruelly stolen away when you least expected it. When you were simply doing your job, operating the chairlift, I decide to try a new tack, uplifted by the knowledge that Carl has my back. "I didn't realise you knew each other," says Carl, eyes fixated on Miriam. "Would have given me a lift if I'd known we were all coming to see William." Miriam strokes William's hand. "Babe," she says, "this is my cousin Carl. I was telling you about him, right? He's been ever so good to me, letting me crash on his sofa. Mind you, they could do with going on a bit of a shop. You should see the state of their cupboards. Never seen anything so empty." William instinctively tries to raise his head, the hole in his neck, or maybe the pain of the bullet on its surrounding structures, urging him to flop back on the pillow and let gravity take up the slack. He creeps me out a bit, knowing that the tiniest of movements could be all it takes for the bullet to dislodge and for William to bleed out in front of us, with nothing for any of us to do to help him. "All right, mate," he says, looking in the direction of Carl. "I'd shake your hand, but as you can see, I'm a bit tied up right now." "No worries," says Carl. I suspect he's freaking out as much as me at the fragility of William's condition. "I totally get it. Nice to meet you. Sorry it's under these circumstances." Life, innit, says William. 1 minute you're starting up the lift, next you're preparing to meet your maker. Can't say I'd have spent half my life packing bags at Tesco if I'd known this was how my gap year would turn out. But there you go, that's life, ain't it? Something in William's voice tells me that this is his standard level of jolliness, that he wouldn't be any more cheery if he were having a pint at Carl's Club, surrounded by £1 million right now, that this is his level of norm. Not for the first time am I reminded by just how privileged Eloise and I are by comparison, having our futures ahead of us, being able to choose university courses and professions which excite us, never really having to answer or justify ourselves to anyone. This, more than anything, makes me feel so much sadness for William, for the fact that he could go his entire life feeling so melancholy for not appreciating the moment or celebrating the little wins, no matter how small they are. To have such a poor view of the world and the people around him. I want to do all I can to help him, to bring his killer to justice, to make sure his life was not in vain. Only, how can I if he won't let me in? If he's going to be so hostile towards me? I have to ask him what he remembers of being shot, but I'm scared of upsetting him further, and the risk of what the upset or anger at me might do to the bullet in his neck. And that the clock is ticking, that we have such a limited window of being able to ask him about the incident. I'm about to speak, to try and find out what he remembers, but there's a loud and confident knock on the door. "Come in," says Miriam loudly, tilting her head back to see around me, her face shifting from confident to grieving girlfriend as Bastien enters the room with a tired-looking Bianco in tow. "Not bothering you, are they?" asked Bastien, nodding his head in my general direction. "You're not, are you, Miss Cook? Not playing detective, I hope?" "You met my cousin, right?" says Carl, by way of my defence, of giving us a legitimate reason for being present. And it's not what Miriam says to Bastien, so much as what she doesn't say, which really gets my goat. Her mannerisms implying that somehow we are bothering them, that our presence is unwanted, that we, or rather, I, am somehow pressuring William and adding to his distress. "Well," asked William, "do you know who shot me or what?" "Actually," says Bastien, hooking his thumbs into the belt loops on his police uniform and leaning back on his heels. And he's speaking to William, but his eyes are firmly fixed on me as I detect a sense of great satisfaction in his tone, in his smirk. "We have a witness," he says, monitoring my face closely. "Saw a young man in the woods." Bastien's feet don't move, but he sways, just enough that I can sense his breath on my face, see the waxy substance holding his moustache in place. We also know that this same young man received a package at his home just this morning, a package containing a gun. I can feel my hands about to shake, to flutter, and I want to run so far away from here, because I know exactly where Bastien is going with this, and I don't believe it for a moment, but I'll not give him the satisfaction. "Oh," I say, "but that's great news, isn't it, Carl?" Carl looks a bit confused. He says, "Sure, some justice for William. It doesn't change the outcome, I know, but at least they'll have to pay for what they've done." "Yes," says Bastien, "that they will. But let me give you a warning, Carl Rain. If I find out that you've been hiding your brother from me, there will be serious consequences. You will go to prison. Mark my words." Miriam tugs on the sleeve of William's pyjama shirt, struggling to find her words. "No," she cries, "not Nicholas. Nicholas is not like that. He wouldn't kill anyone, especially not my William. They don't even know each other. They've never met. Have you, William? Tell him. Tell him." And I should be pleased that Miriam is defending her cousin, that her words are all saying the right things, but there's something about her eyes, about the way she's staring at Bastien, almost as if she's trying to communicate that it was in fact Nicholas who shot William, only she's too scared of me and Carl and what we might do to her if she isn't seen to be defending him. "I can't," says William. "What? Why ever not?" pleads Miriam. But again, I'm sensing that there's something staged, as if the two of them planned this, that they are intentionally leading Bastien astray, that they're hiding something, hiding who the real killer is. It's working too. Whatever William and Miriam are up to, they have Bastien fooled. He seems more confident than ever that Nicholas is his man. Miriam throwing her cousin, Nicholas, the only reason the rest of us haven't kicked her out of the the chalet under the bus. And after everything he's done for her too, Nicholas, entirely innocent, Nicholas, who has zero motivation to shoot the cocky little lifty who uses and abuses people just so he can get free drinks at the bar. I'm watching Bastien's face, and I see it perform a rainbow of expressions in the blink of an eye, his glee oddly replaced by anger, and then I realise why. This news was supposed to anger us, but it hasn't worked. It's had the opposite effect. I've hidden my inner emotions from him, and better still, Carla's mocking him, laughing at how ridiculous the accusation is. And this witness, says Carl, did they actually identify Nicholas as being the person they saw? Did they actually see Nicholas shoot William? Bastien takes a breath as if to speak, eyebrows collapsing, as he realises that Nicholas has in fact not been named. Only, says Carl, Nicholas is off with his Team Sweden coach Inga, training for the Winter Olympic trials. They're out of town, so unless you've got some superpowers I don't know about, then I don't really see how Nicholas can be in two places at once.